The first time Camila Diaz saw Roland Vega, he looked like a man who'd lost his name. It was just past midnight in Little Havana, where the air still clung to the day's heat, and the hum of neon lights pulsed through the windows of El Salina Diner. The place smelled like burnt coffee, hot grease, and tired dreams. Camilla, 29, sharp-tongued and sharper-eyed, was wiping down the counter for the third time, mentally calculating how much interest her student loans were piling up this very second. Then she noticed him, corner booth, alone, unshaven but wearing a blazer too nice for this part of town. His tie was stuffed in his pocket like a defeated flag. He didn't order anything, just stared at a crumpled napkin and an empty cup of coffee like they were about to give him life advice. She leaned over to Louisa, the other waitress on shift. "You see him?" Louisa snorted. "Looks like Wall Street crawled into a dumpster and came here to cry." Camilla approached cautiously. "Refill?" she asked. He blinked up at her like he hadn't been spoken to in years. "Sure," he muttered. She poured. He nodded. No tip. 2 hours passed. Camilla worked the counter, cleaned booths, and served regulars who didn't notice him. But she did. He kept mumbling under his breath, something about square footage, setbacks, permits. She caught phrases like Q4 collapse and Phase 3 entitlements. Most would have dismissed it, but Camilla had a knack for remembering strange things. Her dad, before he died, had been a city planner in Havana. She grew up watching him map neighborhoods on napkins, explaining infrastructure the way other dads talked about baseball. So when the man mumbled, "They rezoned the Edgewater lot, can't believe I missed it," she paused. "Edgewater?" she asked casually. His eyes sharpened. "You know it." "I know they're about to allow mixed-use towers along the bayfront. Height restrictions were eased 2 weeks ago." He stared at her, stunned. "How do you—" Camilla shrugged. "I read, and I listen." He blinked again, then chuckled darkly. "What's your name?" "Camilla, yours?" "Roland Vega." Her jaw almost dropped. "Vega, as in Vega Towers, as in the guy who built half of downtown Miami and lost it all overnight." She started. He held up a hand. "Used to be." There was a long pause. Then, out of nowhere, he smirked. "You want to be adopted?" She squinted. "Excuse me?" Roland leaned forward, something mischievous in his tired eyes. "If I'm going to start over, might as well do something crazy. I could use a partner with brains, and you clearly have them. I'll teach you real estate. You teach me what the hell just happened to my city." Camilla laughed. "You're joking." "I'm broke, disgraced, and sleeping in a sublet with a cat I'm allergic to. I'm not in a position to joke." She stared at him. He was insane, probably dangerous. And yet, something in her chest fluttered. A partnership? An escape? "All right," she said slowly, "but I want contracts, percentages, equity." Roland grinned. "You've got the instincts." As she walked away to grab another coffee pot, the diner echoed with the laughter of a few drunk patrons who'd overheard. One of them shouted, "Yo, Vega, adopting waitresses now?" Camilla didn't flinch, she just smiled. They had no idea what she was about to become. It started with a warehouse. 3 days after their unlikely diner packed, Camilla and Roland stood outside a rusted metal structure just off Northwest 22nd Street, wedged between a boarded-up auto shop and an alley that smelled like regret. The building leaned like it had a secret, and the windows were so caked with grime they looked like abandoned memories. Roland stared at it, then back at Camilla. "This is your big idea?" She nodded. "You asked me what I'd bet on first." "It's condemned." "It's not condemned. It's undercoated." "There's a difference." He raised an eyebrow. Camilla pulled out a folded city permit log from her tote bag. "This zone's going transitional in 6 months. Mixed-use eligibility. Public records haven't updated yet, but I heard the city clerk arguing about it over pastelitos at El Rey Cafe. Her cousin works zoning." Roland blinked. "You're telling me you eavesdrop on city officials to spot opportunities?" Camilla smirked. "I was raised in 2 languages, gossip and grit." Roland whistled. All right, genius. Let's say this place becomes legal to renovate. What then? Then we buy it, clean it, and turn it into 3 co-working lofts, 1 juice bar, and a rooftop with string lights and bad salsa nights. Artists love character, and Instagram loves decay turned cute. Roland looked back at the warehouse, then at her. That's disturbingly smart. I know. They stepped inside. The floorboards groaned under their weight. Pigeons scattered from the rafters. Camilla walked like she'd already lived here. Roland, in contrast, kept tugging at his shirt cuffs like the dust offended him. You ever do this before? He asked. Number. But I've served developers, cleaned up after architects, and refilled the coffee of 4 different city commissioners. You pick up patterns when no one thinks you're listening. Roland was quiet for a while, watching her inspect load-bearing walls and run her fingers across beams. She scribbled quick sketches on napkins and receipts, estimating square footage with her steps. I'm going to be honest, he said finally. I thought this was going to be a fun little distraction, make me feel useful. Camilla turned to him. And now? I think I might have adopted a shark, she grinned. Good, now we need investors. Do we? Camilla tilted her head. You have hidden money? Not quite, but I know people who owe me favors. Would they return your calls? He paused. Probably not. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Roland smirked. We go old school. Camilla raised a brow. Which means? We pitch the city. Use your intel, my name, and make noise. Grants, community projects, public-private partnerships. It's how I started, before the jets, before the lawsuits. Camilla smiled. Welcome back to the ground floor. The deal came together like a Miami thunderstorm, slow rumble, sudden downpour. Camilla pitched the idea at a local small business forum with a paperboard and charm. Roland shook hands, dropped names, and reactivated a dormant LLC called Vega and Diaz Holdings. By the end of the month, they secured the warehouse for less than the cost of a beach condo deposit. They didn't sleep much. They scrubbed graffiti, hauled debris, negotiated permits, and fought off a raccoon in the ceiling that Camilla named El Jefe. They weren't a corporation, not yet. But they were a team. And by the time the building inspector came back, the man looked around the cleaned-up shell and whistled. Didn't think anyone had the nerve. Camilla winked. That's our specialty. The grand opening of their first project, The Roost, was packed. String lights hung like stars over the newly refurbished rooftop. Indie jazz floated on the air. A crowd of Miami creatives, city officials, and skeptical investors milled through the renovated warehouse, sipping eco-cocktails out of recycled glass and snapping selfies against the exposed brick. Camilla stood near the bar in a simple black dress and $12 heels from a thrift store in Coral Gables. Her curls were pinned up, her face glowing not from makeup but from weeks of sweat and triumph. For once, people weren't looking past her. They were listening. This is Diaz, Roland told a group of former clients, the real brain behind the project. Camilla chuckled. He exaggerates. Not enough, Roland said, smiling. Without her, I'd still be hiding from the world, binge-watching my own downfall. But not everyone in the room was smiling. Leaning against the far wall, perfectly poised in a white suit that cost more than the entire building used to, stood Elena Cruz, Miami's most ruthless developer, Roland's former business rival, the woman who'd bought up 2 of his projects after his collapse and sold them for triple the price. She raised a champagne glass in silent mockery, then approached. Well, well, Elena purred, eyes on Camilla. I see you've traded yachts for yard sales, Roland. And who's this? Your intern? Camilla didn't flinch. I'm his partner. Elena's eyes sparkled with venom. Of course you are. A waitress with equity. How progressive. Roland stepped forward. We're not doing this, Elena. Oh, I think we are, she said sweetly. I just came to wish you luck. You'll need it. Miami's a small town. Permits vanish. Inspections get delayed. Tenants lose interest. Her smile was blade sharp, especially when someone whispers in the right ears. Camilla stepped between them. Let me guess, you're the whisper? Elena's smile widened. Oh, honey, I am the storm. She clinked her glass against Camilla's, then turned and vanished into the crowd. Camilla exhaled. She's going to come after us, isn't she? Roland nodded. She already has. The next morning, the permits for their next property mysteriously disappeared from the city database. Then the electrician they'd hired quit without notice. Got a better offer, he mumbled before hanging up. Their social media account was flagged for impersonation. Camilla sat in their tiny shared office above the roost, her laptop open, her inbox a graveyard of rejections. She's smothering us before we scale, she said. Classic Elena. Kill the sprout before it grows. Roland ran a hand through his graying hair. We need to move fast. Announce something big. Something too public for her to sabotage quietly. Camilla narrowed her eyes. Then let's give her something to choke on. She pulled a napkin from her tote bag and started sketching. Edgewater. Remember what you said at the diner? Roland nodded slowly. Camilla looked up. Let's take it. He blinked. The Edgewater lot? The one every developer's circling like vultures? She leaned forward. We don't circle. We build. Later that night, in a high-rise downtown, Elena Cruz poured herself a glass of red wine as an alert buzzed on her phone. Vega and Diaz propose $70 million Edgewater redevelopment plan, the headline read. Her smile vanished. The press called it ambitious. The city council called it impossible. But when Camilla stepped up to the podium at the Edgewater zoning proposal meeting, wearing the same navy blazer she'd borrowed 3 times before, her voice didn't shake. Behind her were renderings, hand-sketched and digitized, of a sleek, glass-wrapped, climate-resilient tower that curved like the Miami coastline. Inside were gardens, cooling systems, flood protection, and rooftop farms. They didn't look like buildings, they looked like hope. My name is Camilla Diaz, she began, and I may not have a firm or a trust fund or a line of developers behind me. But I do have something else, Miami, the version of it that still believes in community, in culture, in making space for both progress and people. The crowd was mixed, some curious, some skeptical, some outright dismissive. And in the front row, arms crossed and smirking in a designer hoodie, sat Diego Diaz, her older brother, self-proclaimed crypto millionaire and serial eye-roller. When she stepped down, applause rippled through half the room, but Diego just slow-clapped with a grin. Wow, little sis, he said. That was almost TED Talk worthy. Too bad your GPA wasn't. Camilla sighed. Hello, Diego. I mean seriously, he continued, walking beside her. What is this? You find a washed-up billionaire and decide to cosplay as an architect? I'm doing something real, she said. You're playing Sim City. Camilla turned, her voice low. You think you know me, but you've never once asked what I've been building. Oh, I know, he said, pulling up a tablet. You've got no degree, no capital, no backing. I had Dad. That stopped him. She pulled a yellowed folder from her bag, the edges bent, the corners smudged. She handed it to him. Inside were sketches, dozens of them dating back years. Blueprints, hand-drawn overlays of flood zones, transit lines, demographic patterns, shaded with colored pencils. Dad taught me how to read a city like it's alive. Before he died, we used to map Havana just to dream of a better version. When I moved here, I kept dreaming. Diego flipped through the pages. His cocky expression faltered. These are mine. And his. And now, Miami's. He stared at her, speechless for once. Back at the office, Roland stared at the same folder like it was the missing link to his entire career. These aren't sketches, he murmured. They're strategy. Camilla, this is decades ahead of what firms are pitching. She nodded quietly. You've been sitting on this the whole time? No one ever asked, she said. They just saw a waitress. He leaned back in his chair. You're not just a genius, Camilla. You're a visionary. She met his eyes. Then let's build the future. But not everyone wanted that future. Elena Cruz filed a lawsuit the next morning, claiming Roland had violated a non-compete clause from 5 years ago. Their Edgewater proposal was frozen, pending court review. Media outlets swarmed the story. Headlines ranged from waitress turned urban planner to Vega's final desperation move. And in the chaos, someone leaked a private email thread Camilla had written years ago, venting about the greedy parasites who'd gentrified Little Havana. They twisted her words, painted her as anti-development. The backlash was brutal. Online forums lit up with mockery. Dishwasher developer trended for 2 days. She stared at her phone, her hands shaking, and whispered to Roland, "Maybe this was a mistake." He didn't hesitate. Number. This is what it looks like when you threaten people who've never been challenged before. He put a hand on her shoulder. They're scared of you. Camilla took a deep breath, wiped her face, and whispered, "Then let them be." The lawsuit hit harder than either of them expected. Elena Cruz had money, lawyers, and a press machine that never slept. Within days, rumors swirled. Roland had broken old contracts, Camilla had fabricated her qualifications, and Vega and Diaz was nothing more than a publicity stunt. The Edgewater project was on pause, the funding frozen, and their investors started backing away, politely at first, then quickly and without eye contact. Worse, someone inside their tiny circle was feeding Elena information. Emails leaked, sketches disappeared. Permit requests were mysteriously delayed. "There's a mole," Camilla said through gritted teeth, pacing their office. "Only 5 people have access to this." Roland looked exhausted. "We're too small to survive this kind of hit." Camilla slammed her hand down. No, we're not. We're not quitting." Roland raised an eyebrow. "You sure you weren't a developer in another life?" But behind his sarcasm, he looked broken. The scandal had dragged old skeletons back into the light. His failed marriage, the investor lawsuits, the personal bankruptcy. Camilla saw it in the way his hands shook when he read the news, how he stared too long at his phone, waiting for a call that never came. That night, Roland took a walk, alone. He didn't say where he was going. He arrived at a downtown law office with no appointment, no lawyer, just a folded folder and a name, Sofia Vega, his daughter. They hadn't spoken in 4 years, not since he missed her law school graduation while on a yacht trip with donors. She looked up from behind her desk, cool and collected. "Wow," she said, "the prodigal father returns." "I'm not here to beg," Roland said. "I'm here because I made a mistake, and now I need help fixing something bigger than myself." He explained everything: Camilla, the project, the betrayal. For once, he didn't defend himself. He didn't dodge blame. Sophia listened silently, then leaned back in her chair. "So you adopted a waitress and tried to rebuild your legacy from scratch?" "No," Roland said. "I stood next to someone building hers." There was a pause. Sophia picked up the leaked emails. "Camilla's smart. These aren't rants. They're insight." "She's brilliant," Roland said softly. "But she's bleeding right now. And it's because I dragged her into my fire." Sophia stared at the renderings. "Edgewater, huh?" she said. "That community center in the base, was that her idea?" Roland nodded. "Everything good in this plan is her." Sophia exhaled. Then slowly, she stood. "Let's burn Elena to the ground." 2 days later, the Miami City Council hearing was packed. TV cameras, protesters, developers watching like vultures. Elena sat in the front row, surrounded by lawyers and city influencers. Her expression was calm, until Sofia Vega walked through the door in a navy suit, carrying a thick binder and fire in her eyes. Roland followed. Then Camilla. When Camilla took the podium, the room went quiet. "I didn't come here to convince you I belong," she said. "I came to show you that I've already built something that belongs to this city." She laid out the entire proposal, every benefit, every design choice, every long-term climate projection. Then Sophia took the mic. "I've reviewed the lawsuit filed by Ms. Cruz," she said crisply. And I've found the alleged non-compete clause, expired 3 years ago. The suit has no standing. Murmurs rippled across the room. Sophia turned to the council members. Furthermore, I'd like to present evidence of bribery, obstruction of permitting, and a falsified inspection log tied to entities controlled by Ms. Cruz. Gasps. Elena's face twisted in shock. You can't. I just did, Sophia said. The council president called for order. After reviewing the materials, he said slowly, and considering community feedback, we're pleased to approve the Edgewater redevelopment proposal under Vega and Diaz. Cheers erupted. Camilla's legs nearly gave out. Roland put an arm around her, eyes glossy. You did it, he whispered. No, she said. We did it. Outside, reporters swarmed them, but Camilla just smiled and kept walking. In that moment, she didn't feel like a waitress or a fraud. She felt like a builder of futures. 6 months later, the Edgewater project opened its doors. Not with champagne and ribbon cutting, but with community. A grandmother from Little Haiti planted herbs in the rooftop garden. A group of kids skated through the open plaza while local musicians played near the benches. The indoor co-working floor was filled with young entrepreneurs, many of whom had once been priced out of the city they loved. Camilla stood by the entrance in a crisp white blouse, holding a binder worn at the corners. It wasn't her first ribbon, but it was the first time her name, Camilla Diaz, was engraved on a bronze plaque at the base of a tower. Underneath it read, Co-founder, Vega and Diaz, designed by the people for the future. Roland walked up beside her, wearing a light linen suit and a pair of sunglasses he probably found in a lost and found box. You ready? He asked. Camilla nodded. More than ever. They walked the halls together, past murals inspired by Latin American art, past the solar panels Camilla had personally budgeted for, past the daycare center she fought to include. You know, Roland said, stopping near the community library, I used to think building towers was about height. Status. Ego. Camilla smiled. Now. He looked out over the courtyard where children ran through water jets. Now I think it's about who you build them for, she nudged him playfully. Took you long enough. He grinned. I'm a slow learner. Good thing I adopted a genius. Later that day, Camilla found Diego standing awkwardly near the juice bar, holding a smoothie like it might explode. You came, she said. He shrugged. It's free. Camilla laughed. But then he grew serious. Look, I was a jerk. You saw something bigger. And I made jokes because I didn't. It's okay, she said. You weren't the only one. He handed her a small envelope. These are from Dad's stuff. I kept them, didn't know what to do with them. Inside were blueprints, scribbled napkin maps, and a single photo of Camilla as a child. Drawing a skyline next to her father, her breath caught. I'm proud of you, Diego added. Camilla folded the photo gently, her eyes wet. Thanks, hermano. That evening, a small group gathered under the stars on the rooftop. Roland gave a short speech. This building started with a napkin, with a waitress who saw what others missed, with failure, and then with fire. He raised his glass, to the city that gave me a second chance, to the girl who made me remember why I built anything at all. Everyone cheered. But Camilla's eyes were on the horizon. Beyond the skyline she could see the ocean rising, the future uncertain. But for once she wasn't afraid. She turned to Sophia, who stood beside her, sipping wine. I've been working on something, Camilla said quietly. Sophia smiled. Let me guess. Bigger than Edgewater? Camilla handed her a new sketch. It was for a flood-resilient neighborhood, solar-powered, low-income accessible and built with adaptive green infrastructure. Sophia raised an eyebrow. You're going global, Camilla nodded. Why not? Sophia looked at her. I'm in. Back at the diner where it all began, a small plaque now hung on the wall above the booth in the corner. In memory of the first napkin deal that changed Miami, Vega and Diaz established at table 14. Louisa, the waitress who once laughed, now wore a Vega and Diaz pin with pride. "I always knew she had it in her," she told anyone who asked. "Okay, maybe not always, but close enough." In a city of glass and water, one building became a symbol, not just of architecture, but of redemption, of genius hiding in plain sight, of two broken people who decided to believe in something again, and together they changed everything.